you've been lied to. Not by others, but by yourself. Every excuse you made, every finger you pointed, it was all a delay to becoming what you were meant to be. Blame is easy. It's a shield, a disguise. They hurt me. They failed me. They didn't believe in me. Good. Let them doubt you. Let them underestimate you. But if you're still standing in the same place next year, that's not their fault. That's yours. When you blame others, you give them your power. You hand over your growth, your peace, your future, and say, here, take it. I'm too weak to own it. That's not strength. That's surrender. You weren't born to surrender. Blame is a barrier to growth. It feels good in the moment. It feels safe. When something goes wrong, the easiest thing in the world is to point outward and say, it wasn't me. It was them. It was the system. It was the timing. It was bad luck. It was everything but me. And for a while, that lie works. It gives you peace, false peace. Because deep down, something in you knows the truth. That every time you shift responsibility, you delay your rise. Imagine a man who's been running late to work every day. He blames traffic. He blames the weather. He blames his alarm clock. But never once does he look at his own habits. Staying up too late, hitting snooze, wasting time on his phone in the morning. And because he keeps blaming, he keeps repeating the cycle. And because he repeats the cycle, he never grows. He never changes. And slowly, the world stops giving him chances. This is how blame destroys people silently. Growth begins when you start asking, what can I do better? Even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Growth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from confrontation, confronting your laziness, your fears, your pride. But if you spend your life dodging accountability, you also dodge transformation. Think of someone trying to build muscle. They go to the gym for a week, don't see results, and say, my genetics are bad. They say, it's the trainer's fault. But the truth is, they skip leg day. They cheat reps. They don't watch their diet. So the mirror shows them exactly what they've put in nothing. Blaming hides the real problem. And when the problem is hidden, it can't be fixed. There's a difference between fault and responsibility. Not everything is your fault, but everything in your life is your responsibility. If someone broke your heart, that's not your fault, but healing from it. That's your responsibility. If your parents didn't raise you with the tools you needed, that's not your fault. But building those tools now, still your responsibility. If you didn't get the job you wanted, maybe the interviewer was biased. Maybe they were wrong. But leveling up your skills, preparing better next time, that's still yours. See, the moment you start owning your reality, you take your power back. And the moment you stop blaming, your eyes open, you stop waiting, you stop depending, you become dangerous. Because now, no one controls your outcome but you. And when you stop blaming others, you stop giving them control over your future. People think growth is about learning new things. Sometimes it's just about unlearning bad habits, unlearning the urge to point fingers, unlearning the need for sympathy, unlearning the addiction to excuses. Because every excuse you make builds a wall between you and who you're supposed to become. Look around. Most people are stuck, not because they lack talent, but because they're too busy explaining why they're stuck instead of fighting to break free. They'll tell you how hard life is. They'll tell you who wronged them. They'll give you their entire history, every betrayal, every injustice, but they won't tell you what they're doing to rise above it. And that's why they stay stuck. There's a certain kind of freedom that comes when you finally say, "It's on me." No more waiting, no more blaming, no more hiding. It's raw. It's painful, but it's real, and real is the only thing that grows. You've got people who grew up with nothing, and they built empires. Why? Because they refused to stay in blame. They didn't say, "I didn't have support, so I can't do it." They said, "I didn't have support, so I'll become the support I never had." They turned pain into purpose. But that only happens when you stop looking backward and start moving forward. Every time you say, "They made me this way," you give them permission to keep owning your life. But when you say, "I'll make myself," you take that permission back. You don't need their apology. You don't need their permission. You need your decision. The decision to stop pointing fingers and start lifting yourself. People respect strength. Not the fake kind that flexes, but the real kind that admits fault, corrects it, and rises again. People admire someone who says, "I messed up, but I'm fixing it." Because in a world full of blamers, the person who takes responsibility stands out like a flame in the dark. Your growth begins the moment your blame ends. Every second spent blaming is a second stolen from your progress. And while you're blaming, someone else is building. Someone else is grinding. Someone else is using their pain to create power. The question is, why not you? The moment you stop blaming, you start healing. It doesn't happen with a bang. It happens in silence, in stillness, in that 1 second where you finally say, "I'm done pointing fingers." That second is not loud, but it's powerful. Because for the first time, the energy you've been wasting on excuses starts flowing into your healing. Most people don't even realize how much pain they're carrying because they're too busy covering it with blame. They're bleeding inside, but instead of treating the wound, they just keep shouting, "He did this to me. She ruined me. They didn't care." And yes, maybe all of that is true. Maybe people failed you. Maybe life crushed you. But here's the truth no one wants to face. Blaming them won't change what happened, and it sure won't help you move forward. Healing begins the day you decide to stop narrating the same story over and over. You know the one. The story where you're the victim, where everyone else is the villain, where everything went wrong and you had no power. But every time you repeat that story, your mind keeps reliving the pain, and you stay trapped, like a wound you refuse to let close, because you keep picking at it with your words. Imagine someone walking through life with a broken leg, but refusing to sit down, refusing to see a doctor, refusing to accept help. And every time someone asks, "Why are you limping?" they say, "Because 5 years ago, someone pushed me." Okay. But what are you doing about it now? The leg is still broken, and the pain is still real. But blaming the person who pushed you doesn't heal the leg. The healing begins only when you stop obsessing over who caused the injury and start focusing on the recovery. It's the same in relationships. Maybe you had someone betray you, cheat, lie, abandon you, and it shattered you. Fine, feel the pain, cry if you have to. But at some point, you have to say, "I'm not giving them more of me." Because every day you spend blaming them, they win. They keep renting space in your head, and you keep paying the price in peace. You deserve better, and better starts with healing. Healing starts when you stop giving your past the microphone and start speaking life into your future. People think healing is some soft thing. It's not. Healing is war. It's not just meditation and deep breathing. It's getting up every day and choosing to take your power back, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. And you can't take your power back if you're still handing it to everyone you blame. There's a man who lost his job and blamed his boss for years. He said the company was toxic, the boss was unfair, the coworkers were snakes. But years later, he's still bitter, still unemployed, still stuck in the same apartment with the same anger. Because every time he had a chance to build something new, he used his energy to talk about the past. That's what blame does. It paralyzes progress. Now look at someone else. Same situation. Fired, betrayed, humiliated. But instead of blaming, they said, "All right, that's over. What can I control now?" And brick by brick, they started rebuilding. No shortcuts, no excuses, just pure focus. And today they run their own company. They're not stuck in the past. They use the pain as fuel. That's healing. And it started the second they stopped blaming. People don't get it. Blame feels good in the short term. It feeds the ego. It makes you feel righteous, like you're the hero in a story of injustice. But healing is what feels good in the long term. Healing gives you peace. Healing gives you sleep. Healing gives you growth. And healing never happens while blame is in control. You've got to ask yourself, what do I want more? Justice or peace? Do I want to prove they were wrong? Or do I want to be free from it? Because sometimes the real flex is not revenge. It's moving on without needing them to say sorry. It's rising without dragging them through the mud. It's smiling again without needing closure. That's real power. You're not weak because you were hurt. You're weak when you let that hurt define you forever. And blame makes sure it does. Blame keeps the scar open. Healing says, yes, that happened, but it no longer controls me. Healing doesn't mean you forget. It means you refuse to let the past steal another minute from your future. Every healed person was once broken. The difference is, they chose not to stay there. They stopped blaming. They stopped waiting for apologies. They stopped needing explanations. And they started doing the hard, quiet, daily work of rebuilding. That's healing, not loud, not dramatic, just consistent and powerful. The kind of power that changes lives from the inside out. Blaming others keeps you trapped in the past. Not because they hold you there, but because you choose to stay there. It becomes your prison, and worst of all, you're the one holding the key. Every time you point a finger at someone else, you anchor yourself to a moment that already hurt you. You replay it. You relive it. You re-experience it like a movie stuck on loop. And as long as you're blaming, you're not moving. Imagine walking through life with a backpack full of bricks. Every brick has a name. One says, "Dad never showed up." Another says, "My ex betrayed me." Another says, "My teacher said I wouldn't make it." Now picture adding more and more bricks every time something goes wrong and you blame someone else for it. Eventually, the weight crushes you. But instead of dropping the bag, you keep carrying it, hoping the world will one day say, "You're right, poor you." And even if it does, your back is still broken. You want to know why people stay stuck, because blame gives them identity. They say, "This is who I am, the one who was hurt, the one who was wronged, the one who was overlooked. And in a twisted way, that pain becomes their comfort zone. The past becomes their personality. So instead of building something new, they cling to the old. Instead of facing the mirror, they keep staring out the window, hoping to find someone else to blame. You see it in relationships all the time. Someone gets cheated on, and years later, they still can't trust anyone. Not because every new person is untrustworthy, but because they're still living in the moment of betrayal. They blame their ex, and yes, maybe the ex was wrong. But now, by holding on to that blame, they block their own happiness. They turn every good person into a suspect. They sabotage love before it can even begin. And the sad part is, they don't even realize they're not punishing the one who hurt them. They're punishing themselves. You also see it in families. Siblings grow up in the same house, but one says, "I'm broken because Mom didn't love me enough." And the other says, "I'll become the person I wish she was." One chooses blame. The other chooses growth. Same past, different path. One remains a prisoner. The other becomes free. The thing about the past is, it doesn't chase you. You keep turning back to look at it. And the more you stare at it, the more you slow down. It's like driving a car, but only looking in the rearview mirror. You're guaranteed to crash. But that's what blame does. It makes the rearview bigger than the windshield. It keeps your focus on what's behind you, so you never reach what's ahead. There's a guy who always says, "I could have been something if only my coach had believed in me." And maybe that's true. Maybe the coach didn't give him a fair shot, but that was 10 years ago. 10 years. And every year since, he's done nothing. No new skills, no new passion. Just the same story, told a little louder each time. The past is his excuse, and blame is his fuel. But it's a fuel that burns him instead of pushing him forward. You've got to realize the people you blame have already moved on. They sleep peacefully. They live their lives. Meanwhile, you're lying in bed, wide awake, angry, bitter, and paralyzed. That's the trap. You stay in a moment that they've forgotten. You suffer for something they no longer even think about. So, who's really in control? Some people think letting go of blame means letting them off the hook. It doesn't. It means unhooking yourself from the past. It means saying, "Yes, that happened. Yes, it hurt. But I refuse to live there anymore." You can't rewrite the chapter, but you can stop rereading it. You can't change what they did, but you can choose what you do next. And that choice, that's everything. You want freedom. Stop blaming. You want growth. Stop blaming. You want peace. Stop blaming. Not because they deserve it, but because you do. Because you deserve to live in the now, not in the wound. Because you deserve to move, not to be stuck. Because your future needs you more than your past ever will. Every time you blame, you give your power away. Every time you revisit the moment they hurt you, you keep the door open for that pain to enter again. But the moment you say, "I'm done living in the story where I lose," you start writing the one where you win. Not because they changed, but because you did. And that is how you rise. True strength comes from self-accountability. Not from the number of people you can blame. Not from how loud you can scream about who hurt you. Not from the sob stories you repeat to anyone who will listen. Strength doesn't come from wearing your wounds like badges. It comes from standing in front of the mirror and saying, "I was wrong, I messed up. Who let that happen? And then deciding you're not going to let it happen again. Most people avoid self-accountability because it's not glamorous. It doesn't come with applause. It doesn't come with sympathy. It's quiet. It's raw. It's staring into your own eyes and accepting that you're not always the victim. Sometimes, you're the one who allowed the situation to spiral. Sometimes, you're the one who ignored the red flags. Sometimes, you stayed silent when you should have spoken, waited when you should have acted, or settled when you should have risen. People think strength is shouting. No. Strength is whispering the truth to yourself when no one's watching. Strength is making a promise to your future self and keeping it, even when your present self wants to quit. Strength is waking up at 5 a.m. to rebuild your life, when you could easily blame your parents, your boss, or your past for why you're not ahead. Look at your life like a house. Maybe the foundation was cracked when you got it. Maybe the roof leaked. Maybe the walls were unstable. Sure, that's not your fault. But if you've been living in that same broken house for years, refusing to fix it and blaming the builders, that's on you. Self-accountability says, this might not be my fault, but it is my responsibility. And when that shift happens, you stop being a tenant of your pain and become the architect of your growth. I knew a man who was stuck in the same job for 10 years. Every lunch break, he complained. His boss was unfair. The company didn't recognize his worth. The system was rigged, and maybe all of that was true. But one day I asked him, "What have you done to change it?" Silence. He had no answer. Not because he lacked talent, but because he lacked ownership. He wanted change without responsibility. He wanted reward without the risk. But life doesn't work that way. You don't get freedom without discipline. You don't get success without sacrifice. And you don't get transformation without truth. Self-accountability isn't cruel. It's a gift. Because once you accept that your life is in your hands, no one else can ruin it. Not your parents, not your ex, not the economy. Sure, they can throw obstacles, but they can't decide your outcome. You do. Every time you show up, even when it's hard, you grow roots. Every time you admit a mistake and learn from it, you plant seeds, and eventually, those seeds become forests of resilience. Think of a broken relationship. It's easy to say, they were toxic, but go deeper. Ask yourself, why did I stay? What was I afraid of? What need was I trying to fill? Self-accountability doesn't excuse their behavior, but it exposes your pattern. And once you see the pattern, you can break it. You can build boundaries. You can choose better. And that, right there, is power. Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that shifts your entire future. I've seen people use blame like a blanket. It keeps them warm, but it also keeps them stuck. They wrap themselves in excuses so tightly, they forget they have legs. They forget they can move. But the moment you take ownership, you realize the door was never locked. You just never turned the handle. Self-accountability looks like this, waking up and saying, I didn't work out yesterday, not because I was busy, but because I didn't prioritize it. It's saying, my business failed not just because of the market, but because I didn't adapt fast enough. It's saying, I lost that relationship not just because of them, but because I brought my old wounds into something new. This level of honesty hurts at first, but then it heals. It cleans the wound. It rebuilds the muscle. And eventually, it makes you unshakable. There's a reason most people don't make it to the top. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's the inability to hold themselves accountable. They're too busy defending their image instead of developing their character. But the real ones, the legends, they own their mistakes. They study their flaws like blueprints. They don't hide from failure. They dissect it, learn from it, and use it as fuel. You want to be strong. Stop explaining why you're not where you want to be. Stop justifying your stagnation. Take the hit. Feel the sting, and then stand up with fire in your chest. Self-accountability is the ultimate form of self-respect. It's looking at your life and saying, I built this, and if I don't like it, I'll tear it down and start again. Most people will never taste that kind of power because they're too busy pointing fingers. But if you can look within, if you can face your reflection and own it all, the good, the bad, the lazy, the afraid, then nothing can control you. Nothing can stop you. You become the storm, not the victim of it. And once you tap into that mindset, the world starts to move differently around you. Because now, you're not reacting to life. You're commanding it. Excuses are the most sophisticated form of self-sabotage. They wear a disguise so convincing, you actually start believing them. You tell yourself you don't have time, you don't have support, you don't have the resources. But underneath all that, what you really lack is the courage to evolve, because evolution demands discomfort. It demands you to shed what's safe and familiar, and step into the unknown, where there are no guarantees, only growth. Every time you say, I can't, you're feeding the part of you that's afraid. Every time you say, I'll start tomorrow, you're delaying the person you're meant to become. Tomorrow is the graveyard where your dreams go to die when they're buried under excuses. It's not your job that's stopping you. It's not your past. It's not your family. It's the story you keep telling yourself. The story that says you're not ready, not good enough, not lucky. But let me ask you, how many more years will you sacrifice for that story? How many more mornings will you wake up wishing your life was different, while doing the same things that keep it the same? I've seen people with nothing build empires because they refuse to make excuses. I've seen single mothers work 3 jobs, go to school at night, and still make time for their kids. Not because they had more time, but because they had more drive. They didn't wait for the perfect conditions. They created them. They didn't ask, what if it goes wrong? They asked, what if it goes right? And that's the difference between those who evolve and those who remain stuck. One group makes moves. The other makes excuses. Imagine standing in front of a locked door. You keep saying, I can't go through because it's locked. But the truth is, the key has been in your pocket the entire time. Excuses blind you to your own potential. They convince you that the lock is the problem when really, you're just too afraid to reach into your pocket and try. And why are you afraid? Because once you open that door, there's no going back. You can't pretend you didn't know. You can't pretend you didn't see your power. And that kind of responsibility scares people. It's easier to be a victim of circumstance than to be the architect of your own destiny. Think about the last time you made an excuse. Maybe you skipped the gym. Maybe you avoided a hard conversation. Maybe you didn't apply for the job you wanted. In the moment, the excuse felt justified. but later. When you were alone with your thoughts, there was regret. And regret is the silent assassin of the soul. It doesn't scream, it whispers, it haunts. And worst of all, it doesn't go away until you do something different. I remember a friend who kept saying he wanted to start a business. Every time we spoke, he had a new reason why he hadn't started. The market's too saturated. I don't have investors. I'm still researching. 5 years passed. Nothing changed. Not because he couldn't do it, but because he was addicted to his excuses. They gave him comfort. They gave him something to talk about. They gave him a reason to stay the same. And here's the truth. As long as your excuses serve you more than your dreams do, you'll never evolve. Growth is brutal. It demands sacrifice. You have to give up your old habits, your old circle, sometimes even your old identity. The person you are today cannot survive in the world of the person you're meant to become. Something has to die for something greater to be born, and that something is your excuses. Burn them, all of them. The one that says you're too tired. The one that says you're too old. The one that says you've failed too many times. Turn those excuses into fuel. Light them on fire and use the flames to forge a stronger version of you. A guy once told me, I'll start taking life seriously when life gives me a break. I looked him in the eye and said, life doesn't give breaks. It gives you tests. And every excuse you make is you failing that test. Life isn't waiting for the perfect moment. It's waiting for you to stop waiting. You keep saying you're stuck, but you're not stuck. You're paused. And the reason you're paused is because you've convinced yourself there's still time. But what if there isn't? What if today is the only chance you get to change it all? Look around. Everyone has a reason to quit. Everyone has a list of disadvantages. But the ones who rise are the ones who stop letting that list define them. Excuses are chains. They don't look heavy at first, but over time, they wear you down. They keep you small. And the saddest part is, you put them on yourself. But the good news, you can take them off. No one's holding you back more than you are. Next time you catch yourself saying, I can't, stop and ask, is that true? Or is that just what I've told myself to avoid the work? Because once you stop lying to yourself, you start finding solutions. Once you stop making excuses, you start making progress. And once you stop waiting for life to change, you start changing life itself. Nobody owes you success. It's yours to claim. That's the truth most people run from. They wait, hands outstretched, as if life is some kind of charity. They wait for someone to recognize them, to validate their dreams, to hand them a shortcut, a cheat code, a map. But life doesn't work like that. Life is brutal. Life is indifferent. It doesn't care how much you want something. It only responds to what you're willing to sacrifice to get it. You weren't born with a crown on your head. You weren't promised anything. No one wakes up thinking, today, I owe you success. Your teachers don't owe you. Your friends don't owe you. Your parents don't owe you. The world isn't watching you, waiting for you to succeed. It's moving, fast. And if you don't move with it, it leaves you behind. Success isn't inherited, it's earned. It's built in the silence, in the struggle, in the early mornings and late nights. It's not on sale. You can't borrow it. You can't steal it. You can't cry your way into it. It belongs to those who wake up and fight for it every single day. even when no one claps, even when no one believes, even when no one is watching. I've seen people born with nothing carve greatness out of pain. They didn't wait for permission. They didn't wait for the right mood. They decided. They stood up and said, "This is mine." And they took it. They didn't complain about what they lacked. They built with what they had. And every time life knocked them down, they got back up. Not because it was easy, but because they knew nobody else was coming to save them. Look at the streets. There are dreamers in every corner. Some still waiting for the right time. Some blaming the system, the government, their parents, their past. And others, grinding in silence. Those are the ones who get ahead, because they understand that no one is coming. There's no applause for effort. Only results matter. They understand that complaining doesn't build empires. Discipline does. You think success will show up because you want it. You think just because you're passionate, you deserve it. Passion without action is a fantasy. Dreams without discipline are delusions. If you're not willing to bleed for it, you don't deserve it. If you're not willing to be misunderstood, doubted, laughed at, then you're not ready for it. Nobody cares about your excuses. The market doesn't care about your feelings. Reality doesn't bend for your comfort. You either become strong enough to shape your future, or you get crushed under the weight of your own indecision. And here's the raw truth. The longer you wait for someone to hand you what you think you deserve, the longer you stay stuck in mediocrity. Success is claimed, not gifted. It's like standing at the base of a mountain. No one's going to carry you up. They'll watch. Some will mock you. Some will doubt you. And a few might cheer you on. But the climb is yours. The cuts, the bruises, the fatigue. That's the currency you pay to own the view from the top. Think about a student who fails an exam. They blame the teacher, the system, the curriculum. But there's another student who failed the same test and said, "I didn't study hard enough. I'll do better next time." Who do you think is going to succeed? The one waiting for pity, or the one taking responsibility? In your job, maybe your boss doesn't appreciate you. Maybe you're overlooked. Maybe it feels unfair. Good, use that. Let it burn. But don't sit there and expect recognition. Earn it. Become so valuable they can't ignore you. Outwork them, outlearn them, outlast them. You don't need a spotlight to shine. You need a reason that's bigger than your pain. There was a man who worked 12-hour shifts as a janitor. Every night, he came home and studied. Tired, sore, broke, but hungry. He didn't wait for a miracle. He became one. Years later, he owned the building he once cleaned. He wasn't smarter than others. He just understood something simple. Success belongs to those who show up when it's hardest to keep going. You have the same hours in a day as anyone else. But it's not about time. It's about intention. How are you using your hours? Are you building or wasting? Are you chasing or waiting? Because success doesn't chase anyone. It sits on a throne built by those willing to sweat for it. Every day you don't claim your life. Someone else uses you to build theirs. Every job you don't start, someone else will. Every risk you avoid, someone else will take. And one day, you'll look back and realize you were the one standing in your own way. You weren't born to be average. You weren't created to coast. There's power in your breath. There's fire in your gut. But it means nothing if you don't act on it. You can read all the books, Watch all the motivational videos, repeat all the affirmations. But until you stand up and say, "This is mine," nothing changes, so stop waiting. Stop hoping someone will hand you the life you dream about. No one's going to knock on your door and say, "You've suffered enough, here's success." You have to go out there and take it, demand it, earn it, and never apologize for it. Because the world owes you nothing. But you owe yourself everything. They told you to be realistic, but the people who changed the world were never realistic. They were unreasonable, unshackable, and unstoppable. They were the ones who stood in the storm, bleeding and broken, and still whispered to themselves, "I'm not done." Because deep down, they knew something most people ignore. The pain is temporary, but quitting makes it permanent. You've got to stop looking outside for what can only be found inside. The fire you're searching for is already in you. Every setback, every betrayal, every lonely night was shaping you. Not to break you, but to reveal the warrior within. You're not weak. You're not lost. You're in the process of becoming. And becoming is never comfortable. Growth is painful. Discipline is brutal. But regret will eat you alive. You have to decide who you're going to be when no one is watching. Will you be the one who gave in to fear, or the one who rose in defiance? Will you tell your story as a victim of circumstances, or as the architect of your own fate? The choice is always yours. And that choice, made day after day, is what separates the remembered from the forgotten. Look around. Most people are sleepwalking through life, hoping someone comes to rescue them. But the truth is, no one is coming. Not tomorrow, not next week, not ever. The rescue you need is inside your own two hands. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop blaming your parents, your past, your city, your environment. History doesn't care about your excuses. It only remembers those who rise despite them. Listen closely. I will either find a way or make one. That's the mindset. When the door is locked, kick it down. When the path is blocked, carve a new one. If you can't find motivation, create discipline. If you feel fear, walk forward anyway. Don't pray for an easier life. Pray for the strength to endure a harder one. Greatness is not given to the lucky. It is seized by the relentless. Every champion was once a contender who refused to give up. Every legend was once unknown, doubted, laughed at. But they kept showing up. They kept punching the wall, even when their knuckles bled, and eventually the wall broke. Because consistency breaks resistance. One step at a time. One day at a time. One battle at a time. Stop telling people what you're going to do. Start showing them what happens when you refuse to quit. Silence your doubts with action. Drown your fear in effort. Prove to the world, and more importantly, to yourself, that you were built for this. You didn't come this far just to stop here. You didn't go through all that pain just to play small. You were made to move mountains, not carry excuses. You see, power doesn't come from comfort. It comes from pressure. From pushing through when your body says no, when your mind screams quit. That's where the breakthrough lives. In the fight, in the fire, in the grind no one sees. That's where champions are born, not under lights, but in the darkness, in the silence, in the moments you think no one is watching. Life doesn't reward the person with the best excuse. It rewards the one who takes responsibility and turns it into fuel. You've got two choices every morning. Continue to sleep with your dreams, or wake up and chase them. No one's going to do it for you. No one's going to hand you greatness. You've got to bleed for it, fight for it, and never stop until it's yours. You were never meant to live an average life. You weren't designed to blend in. You were born to stand out, to be bold, to be a force of nature. So stop playing it safe. Stop dimming your light just to make others comfortable. This is your time, your fire, your fight. And the world is waiting to see what happens when you finally decide to rise without fear, without apology, and without limits.